Hi everyone, my name is Dylan Sinnickson and I'm a Ph.D. student under the advisement of Dr. David Chigaris and Dr. Mike Allen. And today I wanted to speak with you briefly about the effect of freshwater flow on fish communities in the Suwannee River Estuary. So just some background information on the Suwannee River if you're not already familiar. It's located along Florida's Nature Coast, which is the least developed coastline along the continental United States. Since 2003, there's been a high frequency of extreme drought conditions. In particular, 4 of the 6 most extreme low flow events in the past 100 years have happened since 2003. Climate models project even greater variability in future precipitation rates, which can further impact the frequency of droughts. Droughts can impact ecosystems through an increase in salinity levels and a decrease in nutrient concentrations, which subsequently results in decreased fish diversity and abundance. So we hypothesized that changes in freshwater discharge would be reflected in changes in estuarine fish communities downstream. So in order to test this hypothesis, I used EcoPath with EcoSim, which is a computer-based modeling software used to assess aquatic ecosystems. In total, I have 59 different functional groups in my model, which are defined by just a collection of different species. These functional groups range from top predators to planktonic species, and the groups are linked together via known diet compositions. As you can see by this figure here, I have a series of different functional groups that have a plethora of different predator-prey interactions. In total, I have 85 different fish species in my model, and the biomass of these fish species was estimated from the Fisheries Independent Monitoring Program of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, which has a lab in Cedar Key and has been collecting data, fisheries independent data in the region for over 20 years. My model is also influenced by fishing effort and landings data, which have been collected through NOAA throughout the Nature Coast. So after making my EcoPath model, I then used EcoSim to predict fish biomass under different environmental scenarios, and these scenarios were constituted by different levels of nutrient concentrations and discharge. So this slide represents changes in biomass densities for 3 recreationally caught fish: snook, spotted sea trout, and red drum. As you can see, we fit our model using 2 different methodologies. The blue line represents predictions of fish biomass using discharge, while the black line represents predictions of fish biomass densities using nutrient concentrations. And as you can probably tell, the discharge model tended to underpredict fish biomass densities, while we had a stronger fit when we used nutrient concentrations as our main environmental variable predicting fish biomass. I think another important takeaway from this slide is that snook have been exponentially increasing in the estuary since 2007, and this is likely due to increasing temperatures and range expansion of mangrove habitat. So this slide represents changes in forage fish biomass densities in 3 different environmental scenarios, and a forage fish is just defined as a prey species. So the upper dotted line represents changes in forage fish biomass in a 20% flood condition. The second dotted line represents a 13% decrease in Suwannee River discharge, and the bottom dotted line represents an extreme drought, a 55% decrease in flow. And I think the major takeaway from this slide is that the 20% increase in flow, this flood condition, as well as the moderate drought condition, only had small changes on forage fish biomass densities. But the extreme drought condition of a 55% decrease in flow had an extreme impact on biomass densities. And this obviously would have implications for potentially implementing minimum flow requirements for the Suwannee River. So this slide represents the relationship between anchovies and predators. On the x-axis, we have changes in anchovy biomass, and on the y-axis, we have changes in predator biomass. Spotted sea trout are represented in black, snook in gold, and redfish in red. And I think one of the major takeaways from this graph are that the relationships can often be state dependent, so they can change. As you can see, the relationship between spotted sea trout and anchovies is positive up to a given point, but then this relationship turns negative. And this is likely due to the fact that snook benefit the most from an increase in anchovy biomass. As snook reach high biomass densities, they then begin to exert predation pressure on spotted sea trout. So the relationships can change and are state dependent. There are also important relationships regarding competition, as redfish actually decrease with an increase in anchovy biomass. So this is just a brief synopsis of my research on the relationship between Suwannee River discharge and estuarine fish communities. I think some of the major takeaways from this presentation are the impact that extreme droughts have on fish communities, as well as the importance of anchovies on predatory fish biomass, and lastly, the increasing presence and impact of snook on the estuary. I'd like to thank all funding sources and collaborators, in particular IFAS and the Nature Coast Biological Station, data collected through FWC, and funding through the Florida Forage Fish Coalition. Hope everyone stays safe during this break, and I get to see you next time at the next NCBS Discovery Day.